Returning from studying abroad, I found an unexpected future sister-in-law at home. She proclaimed herself the future mistress of our family, threatening to teach me her never-before-met sister-in-law a lesson. But no one told her that my brother was adopted. I am the sole heir to the Sanders family. And even my brother has to watch his step around me. When my brother picked me up from the airport and brought me home, my parents were eagerly waiting for me. Due to the pandemic, I hadn't been home for a long time and everyone was incredibly excited. As I was catching up with my family and expressing how much I had missed them, my brother pulled over a stranger and introduced her to me. The hint of shyness, he said. "This is my girlfriend, Chloe. Your future sister-in-law." Then turning to her with a slight nod, he added, "And this is my sister I've often told you about. Molly Sanders. You can call her Molly." "Hello." She greeted me with a polite smile, extending both hands. I was still caught up in the excitement of being home. After exchanging pleasantries with her, I turned back to continue chatting animatedly with my parents. That evening, as I cuddled up with my mom, she filled me in on the details. According to her, this Chloe was an intern my brother had met at the branch company he managed. He seemed pure and gentle and my brother was head over heels for her. They hadn't been together long before he brought her home, declaring his intention to marry her. I was as excited as if I just heard the juiciest gossip. And then is my brother really going to get married? Your father and I would prefer someone from a similar background. Of course, but if he insists, I can't say much. If he truly loves her, we'll let him be, my mom replied. Always the open-minded one. I wasn't worried about my brother. But little did I know when I met Chloe the next day, I realized I had severely underestimated her. Due to jet lag, I woke up in the afternoon. I went downstairs to find something to eat, and sat at the dining table for breakfast, when I heard a voice from behind. "Sister, you're just waking up. Your brother has already been at the office for half a day. What's wrong with you?" A question mark floated above my head. I turned around to see it was Chloe speaking. "Oh, were you talking to me?" I asked somewhat incredulously. She rolled her eyes, her pupils nearly disappearing into her skull, and slowly walked down the stairs with her arms crossed. Wow. She already had the air of the mistress of the house. She had seemed normal in front of my parents yesterday, but behind their backs, she couldn't wait to start giving me attitude. Who else would I be talking to? Is there a third person in this room right now? Her tone was filled with undisguised hostility. Clearly, I hadn't misunderstood her. After my initial shock, I found it amusing. "I thought you were talking to someone else. After all, we're not that close. So don't call me sister. My family doesn't have any older sisters." I shot back at her and turned back to continue eating. What kind of person is this? My brother must have been blinded by love to fall for her. She continued walking towards me, about to speak with an aggressive attitude, when we heard the front door open. Chloe immediately switched to a different persona, her expression turning fragile and her tone a complete reversal from her previous snarky attitude. "Don't be angry. If you don't want me to call you that, I won't in the future." Wow. I can't believe there are still such textbook examples of green tea bitches in the 21st century. Doesn't she find herself too fake? At that moment, my mom and brother walked in together. Seeing Chloe's pitiful look, they were confused and quickly came over to ask, "What's wrong? What happened with my brother back?" Chloe became even more dramatic. She even managed to squeeze out 2 tears that welled up in her eyes, looking truly pitiful. "It's nothing, Molly. I mean, she doesn't want me to call her sister. I won't call her that anymore. I thought it would show closeness, but I didn't expect to upset her. I didn't mean to. I just won't call her that anymore." I was stunned by her words. In my 20+ years, I've never seen such a real drama queen. I guess I finally seen one. My mom tried to mediate. "Oh, it's just a small thing. No need to get upset." My brother also chimed in. "Molly might just be having some morning grumpiness. He probably hasn't adjusted to the time difference yet. Don't take it to heart." He gave me a look, and then comforted the seemingly pitiful Chloe back to their room. I didn't need to continue eating. I was already full from anger. My mom looked at me and asked what happened. I said it was nothing. I want to see what other tricks this person can pull. Having just returned to the country, I was busy meeting up with old friends every day during this time. I originally didn't have time to bother with Chloe, but unexpectedly one of my friends brought her up. "How are you getting along with your future sister-in-law? She's quite something, isn't she?" The speaker was my childhood friend, Brian White. His expression and demeanor clearly said, "I know everything, but I'm not telling. I'm waiting for you to ask. This guy has been like this since we were kids." I gave him a sidelong glance. His smile became even more sly. "This little girl was just an intern in your family's company. She hadn't been there. Long before she had your fool of a brother completely smitten. I scuffed. Is that all? Who doesn't know that? Tell me something I don't know. Brian wasn't offended and continued. Well, did you know that this person had only one goal? From the moment she entered the company? It was to seduce your brother. Now she's going around calling herself the Sanders family's daughter-in-law. Using this identity to show off everywhere. Finally turned to look at him. Brian proudly took out his phone. And showed me several screenshots of conversations between Chloe and her girlfriends. William Sanders is already in my pocket. What kind of rich young master? He's putty in my hands. William took me home to meet his parents. Sanders' house is so big and they even have a housekeeper. I must hold on to this tightly. William's sister is coming home soon. In families like this, the sister-in-law is always a potential threat. When she gets home, I need to give her a good lesson to put her in her place. How foolish to dare to boast about such things. She really can't keep her mouth shut. I inwardly criticized, then turned back to Brian. And what's your relationship with the person in these screenshots? Brian grinned and I looked at him with disdain. He was quite frank about it. What's the big deal? It's a mutually beneficial arrangement. Who's like your brother? However, I couldn't help but keep an eye on Chloe, from my observations. This person's ambition was not small. On the surface, she appeared gentle, kind and innocent, not fighting or grabbing for anything. Seemingly not after anything. But in reality, she didn't deprive herself of anything. She had my brother convert her to a full-time employee. Promote her and give her a cushy position in the department. She went from occasionally staying over to practically moving into our house. She was good at playing the victim. And knew how to make people like her. In this house, except for me and the housekeeper, she greeted everyone with a smile. Pleasing my parents was to win over her future in-laws. And cuddling my brother was to get married quickly and become the real Mrs. Sanders. Only towards me, her sister-in-law, she didn't even bother to pretend. When she saw Mrs. Wilson bringing me a late-night snack, she made a fuss about wanting some too. But it was already very late and the soup had been simmering for hours. Was too late to make it now and Mrs. Wilson was about to go to bed. When she heard Mrs. Wilson was unwilling. She put her hands on her hips and put on her young mistress airs again. What? I want to have some soup and you can't make it for me? Are you the Sanders family's housekeeper or some pampered lady? Can't I even give you an order? Now this is. Wilson had no choice but to go make it for her. She was so domineering, yet in front of my parents. She always yelled to me. I couldn't be bothered to play such a poor act with her. Never giving her a good face. This contrast made me look like the unreasonable one. I once tentatively asked my brother if he really wanted to marry Chloe. Did he really know this person? My brother just treated it as me throwing a childish tantrum, saying he would marry her in the future, and hoped I would get along well with her. My parents were also becoming increasingly fond of Chloe. Chloe would accompany my mom shopping, buying bags. No matter what my mom liked, she would praise my mom's taste, flattering her to no end. Of course, she would often receive gifts from her future mother-in-law, exchanging emotional value for material value. Both of them were very satisfied. My brother was naturally happy to see their good relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law. I was the only one in this family who didn't like her. This contrast became increasingly obvious, and I started to look like the real villain. Because of this, Chloe became more confident in facing me, treating me even more excessively, in places where my parents couldn't see. Sister's room is really big. I marry your brother. Can we move to this room? After all, you'll be married off by then. I think. The lighting and space here are the best. It would be a shame if it were left vacant. It sounded like she was asking, but her tone was more like she was informing me. So she had her eye on my room from the beginning. I glanced at my brother standing nearby and he didn't say a word. I laughed in anger. Is that so? You might not even marry into this family. And you're already thinking about taking my room? And since you hooked my brother, isn't he going to buy you your own marital home? Why do you have to stay in my family's house? Molly, don't talk nonsense. My mom had heard what I said and came over. Chloe, don't take her seriously. My mom even turned to comfort Chloe. Then said to me, is that how you should talk? Quickly apologize to your brother. And Chloe, I wouldn't. Although I realized I shouldn't have said that. I refused to apologize in front of Chloe. Being my mom also taking her side. Chloe's look towards me became even more arrogant. It's okay, Auntie. Molly is just throwing a tantrum. We won't move out. William and I want to stay with you. I want to take care of you in your old age. After challenging me with her eyes, she easily spouted flattering words to my mom. My brother also played the peacemaker. Don't blame Molly. It was Chloe joking about switching rooms with her. Chloe took it seriously. He turned to me, as if coaxing a child who doesn't understand. Your sister-in-law was just teasing you. Don't be angry, okay? My mom also repeatedly praised her for being understanding. And scolded me for being petty. Saying it was just a joke and reprimanding me for being intolerant. Seeing that they were really starting to prepare for the wedding, I began to panic. I couldn't let her really marry into my family. We couldn't possibly live with this drama queen. Could we? Taking advantage of a day when Chloe wasn't at our house, I called a family meeting with my parents and brother. I don't agree with Chloe marrying into our family. As soon as I said this, my parents and brother looked at me. My mom said, Molly, don't make trouble. My brother seemed unsurprised. As your sister-in-law predicted. You really don't agree. Well done. She even predicted this. My brother seemed somewhat exasperated. Why are you so dissatisfied with Chloe? You seem to dislike her in every way. When she told me, I didn't believe it. I didn't expect you to still try to make things difficult for her. At this time. As he spoke, my brother had a look of feeling wronged on her behalf. Molly, can't you just give her a chance for my sake? If you really don't like her after we get married, I'll move out. Is that okay? We won't live together. It seems Chloe had already given my brother a preemptive warning. I knew that whatever I said next, he would think it was just an excuse because I didn't like Chloe. She really was deeply scheming. I knew it was useless to say anything more. So I directly took out those chat records. Between Chloe and her girlfriends. When I tossed the printed chat logs onto the dark mahogany coffee table, I expected at least a pause, a moment of hesitation from my family. Instead, William didn't even read past the second page. He dropped the paper back onto the glass surface, his face hardening with anger. Molly, this is low. Even for you, William said, his voice trembling with disappointment. Did you really hire someone to forge chat logs just to smear Chloe? Or did your playboy friend Brian cook this up for you? I stared at him, incredulous. Forge them? William, these are screenshots from her own best friend's phone. Brian got them directly from the source. Look at her tone. She calls you putty in her hands. She literally wrote, when his sister gets home, I need to give her a good lesson to put her in her place. Are you completely blind? My mother picked up the papers with a troubled frown. She skimmed them, her brows knitting together, but she ultimately shook her head and laid them down. Softly. Molly. Brian White isn't exactly known for his moral rectitude, Mom sighed. Looking at me with gentle disapproval. You know how those wealthy young men play around. How do we know this isn't some fabricated drama to stir up trouble? Chloe has been nothing but sweet to us. She comes over every weekend, cooks soup with me, buys me scarf sets. With your credit card, Mom. I snapped, losing my patience. William gave her an unlimited supplementary card from the family account. She's buying your affection with our own money. That's enough. William stood up, slamming his palm on the table. I won't let you insult Chloe like this. She grew up in a modest family. She didn't have the luxury of studying abroad in Europe like you did, Molly. She's sensitive, she's fragile, and she works hard at the branch office. You've been home for 2 weeks. And all you've done is pick fights with her because you can't stand seeing someone else take center stage in this house. I looked at my brother, this man I had grown up with, who used to shield me from rainstorms when we were kids, and realized that logic was entirely useless. Chloe had executed a masterclass in emotional manipulation. She had primed William so thoroughly that any attack on her character was automatically reframed as evidence of my cruelty. My father, who had been sitting quietly reading the financial reports, finally looked up from over his reading glasses. His sharp, gray eyes swept over the papers on the table, then moved to William, and finally settled on me. William, Dad said calmly. Your sister brought up a concern. Whether these logs are real or fake, you should maintain some professional distance at the office. Dad, not you too. William exasperatedly threw his hands up. Chloe is my girlfriend. We are talking about marriage. If my own family won't trust my judgment, who will? I trust your heart, son, Dad said, his tone voice completely even, devoid of emotion. But business is business, and the Sanders family name carries weight. Molly, you've just returned. You need time to rest. Don't interfere in your brother's personal life for now. Fine, I said, a cold smile touching my lips as I gathered the papers off the table. Do whatever you want. But don't say I didn't warn you when she tries to swallow this house whole. I walked upstairs, my heels clicking sharply against the marble. Back in my bedroom, I pulled out my phone and dialed Brian. How did the big family intervention go, heiress? Brian's lazy, amused voice drifted through the speaker. He called it a fake. Said you probably forged it, I replied, leaning against my balcony railing and staring down at the sprawling manicured lawn below. Brian chuckled, unbothered. Classic. Love makes men stupid, but gold digging makes women brilliant. You know what she's doing right now? What? She's at a high-end jewelry boutique in the city center with 3 of her social climbing friends. She's trying on a 5-carat diamond ring. Word on the street is she told the store manager to put it on the Sanders family corporate account as a business expense. A dangerous spark lit up inside me. Did she now? Yep. She told the clerks her future sister-in-law is an unemployed spoiled brat who relies on family allowances while she's about to become the direct lady of the Sanders empire. I took a deep breath, the anger dissolving into a ice-cold clarity. Brian, tell the boutique manager to hold that ring. Tell them Miss Sanders will be arriving personally in 20 minutes to oversee the transaction. The flagship store of Latoile sat in the heart of the city's most luxurious shopping district. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and security guards in crisp suits set the tone for an environment where mere mortals didn't dare set foot. When I stepped through the glass doors, the familiar sales director, Mr. Vance, immediately recognized me and bowed slightly. Miss Sanders, welcome back to the country. It's an honor to see you again, he said smoothly. Hello, Mr. Vance, I said, adjusting my sunglasses. I hear someone is trying to charge a 5-carat diamond to our corporate line. Before Mr. Vance could answer, a loud, high-pitched laugh echoed from the VIP lounge in the back. Oh, please. Put it in the velvet box, Chloe's voice rang out, laced with insufferable arrogance. My fiancé, William Sanders, will have his assistant clear the invoice by tomorrow morning. We're getting engaged next month, you know. Miss Chloe, you're so lucky, one of her friends gushed loudly. The Sanders family is top-tier elite. You're going to be living in a private mansion with housekeepers and private chefs. It's nothing, really, Chloe said, her voice dripping with artificial modesty. William adores me. He says the family company will be entirely under his control soon. His little sister just came back from abroad, trying to act all high and mighty, but honestly, she's just a girl. In traditional families like ours, daughters get a little dowry and get married off. The real assets stay with the son. I walked slowly toward the VIP lounge, holding a cup of espresso provided by the staff. Is that so, Chloe? I asked, stepping into the room. The laughter cut off instantly. Chloe turned around, her face momentarily freezing when she saw me standing there in a tailored silk blazer and designer heels. But she quickly recovered, remembering that William was completely in her pocket. She raised her chin, her eyes flashing with defiance. Molly? What a coincidence, she said, wrapping her arms around herself in that fragile posture she loved to fake. Are you here to shop too? Though I heard you don't have a formal role in the company yet. Can you afford the pieces? Here. Her 3 friends giggled behind their hands, casting condescending looks at me. Chloe, I said calmly, taking a sip of my coffee. Who gave you permission to use the Sanders corporate line for personal purchases? Chloe's expression turned smug. William gave me his secondary corporate card. He told me I could buy whatever I needed for our upcoming engagement. He said as the future mistress of the family, I shouldn't look cheap. Mr. Vance, I called out over my shoulder without taking my eyes off her. Network director hurried forward. Yes, Miss Sanders. Revoke that corporate card immediately, I said coolly. The Sanders Group corporate accounts are strictly reserved for board-approved business expenditures. Any unauthorized personal swipe over $50,000 constitutes corporate embezzlement and will be reported directly to our legal department. Chloe's eyes widened in shock. You can't do that. William gave me that card. William is the manager of a regional branch company, I replied, stepping closer until I was looking down at her. He is an employee of the Sanders Group. He does not own the treasury, he does not own the shares, and he certainly does not have the legal authority to hand out company credit cards to his unvetted girlfriend. You're just jealous. Chloe raised her voice turning shrill as her delicate facade shattered. You're jealous that William loves me more than he cares about you. You're afraid that once I marry him, you won't have a place in this family anymore. Jealous? I laughed out loud. It was genuinely the funniest thing I had heard all year. Chloe, you really have no idea where you are standing, do you? I know exactly where I stand, she sneered, leaning in close so her friends couldn't hear, her voice dropping to a vicious whisper. I know your brother holds the executive power in the family branch. I know your parents love me. And I know that in a few months, I will be Mrs. Sanders, and you will be nothing more than an annoying guest in my house. So if I were you, I'd start kissing my feet now before I make William kick you out. I looked at her desperate, greedy eyes and felt a sudden wave of pity. She had spent so much time calculating, scheming, and climbing, yet she hadn't bothered to execute the most basic due diligence on the family she was trying to rob. Mr. Vance, I said, ignoring her completely. If this lady cannot pay for that ring with her personal debit card today, please ask security to escort her out. She is disturbing the ambience. Right away, Miss Sanders, Vance said firmly, signaling two tall security guards who immediately stepped forward. Molly Sanders. You will pay for this. Chloe shrieked, backing away as the guard surrounded her. I'm calling William right now. You wait and see. Please do, I smiled, tossing my empty paper cup into the trash can. Tell him I'm going home to have dinner with Mom and Dad. He can come home and throw a tantrum if he dares. That evening, the Sanders family estate was quiet, but the air was thick with tension. When William slammed the front doors open at 8 p.m., his face was red with fury. Chloe was right behind him, sniffling softly, her eyes red and puffy as if she had been crying for hours. Molly, get down here right now. William roared into the foyer. My parents stepped out of the study, startled. William, what is the meaning of this shouting? Dad asked sternly. Ask your precious daughter. William pointed an angry finger at me as I casually walked down the grand staircase, a book in hand. She embarrassed Chloe at Latoile today. She called security on her, canceled my corporate card, and accused Chloe of being an embezzler in front of all her friends. Mom gasped slightly, looking at me with confusion. Molly, did you do that? I did, I replied evenly, standing on the bottom step. Chloe tried to swipe a $450,000 diamond ring on the Sanders Group branch account. That is illegal. William. If the external auditors saw that swipe, you would be stripped of your managerial position by the board of directors within 24 hours. William stuttered for a moment, caught off guard by the legal reality, but Chloe quickly stepped up, clutching his arm and weeping softly. Uncle, Auntie. I didn't know, Chloe sobbed, looking up at my parents with pure, innocent helplessness. William told me I was part of the family now. I just wanted to pick out a ring so we could announce our engagement at the upcoming annual charity gala. I didn't mean to break company rules. Molly treated me like a criminal. She told the guards I was a gold digger who wasn't worthy to step foot into the Sanders house. I never said that last part, I said calmly. Though I certainly thought it. Molly. Mom scolded, stepping forward to hand Chloe a tissue. You went too far. Even if Chloe made a mistake with the card, she's your brother's future wife. How could you humiliate her in public like that? Auntie, it's okay, Chloe sobbed, laying her head against Mom's shoulder in a masterful display of guilt-tripping. I know Molly dislikes me. She thinks I'm from a poor background and not good enough for William. Maybe I really should just leave. I don't want to cause rift between William and his family. No. You're not leaving. William grabbed Chloe's hands, his eyes blazing with protective rage. He turned to Dad. Dad, I've made up my mind. I want to marry Chloe right away. We will host our official engagement ceremony at the Sanders Group annual gala next week. Next week? Dad frowned slightly. Isn't that a bit rushed? It's not rushed at all. William insisted. I want to give Chloe the identity she deserves so nobody, including my sister, can ever insult her again. Furthermore, as the future successor of the Sanders Group, my marriage will stabilize the company's public image. I almost burst out laughing. Future successor? I looked at Dad. He didn't say anything to correct William's declaration. Dad simply looked at William with a deep, unreadable expression, then turned his gaze to Chloe, whose eyes flashed with triumphant delight behind her tears. Dad, I said quietly. Are you really going to allow this? Dad was silent for a long moment. Then, he let out a long breath. If William is certain about his choice, we will announce the engagement at the gala. Chloe suppressed a smirk, shooting me a triumphant glance from behind William's back. She thought she had won. She thought her tears, her victim play, and her emotional leverage over my mother and brother had secured her entry into the billionaire class. What she didn't realize was that my father's silence wasn't approval. It was execution. Thank you, Uncle. Thank you, Auntie. Chloe squealed softly, hugging my mother. I promise I will be the best daughter-in-law. I will serve this family with all my heart. Good, Dad said flatly. Molly, come to my study. We need to discuss the legal preparations for the gala. Chloe sneered at me as I followed my father up the stairs. She probably thought Dad was going to reprimand me in private. She couldn't have been more wrong. Inside the dimly lit study, Dad walked over to the floor-to-ceiling bookshelf, moved a heavy leather-bound volume, and unlocked the hidden wall safe behind it. He pulled out a thick black leather binder and laid it on his desk. Sit down, Molly, Dad said, dropping into his leather armchair. I sat down across from him. Dad, why are you letting William go through with this? Chloe is an absolute snake. She's going to ruin him. William is 30 years old, Molly, Dad said quietly, rubbing his temples. I have shielded him his entire life. I gave him the branch company to manage, I gave him executive titles, I gave him a lavish lifestyle. But he lacks eyes to see people's true hearts. He lacks the ruthlessness required to run an enterprise of this scale. Dad opened the binder. On the first page was an official document stamped with the seal of the High Court, Deed of Adoption. Beneath it was a second document, the Sanders Family Trust and Equity Distribution Act. Your brother was adopted when he was 4 years old, Dad said softly. His biological father was my best friend and business partner who died saving my life in a factory explosion. Out of loyalty, I brought William into our home and raised him as my own son. I loved him as my own flesh and blood. I know, Dad, I said softly. You never treated him any differently than me. No, I didn't, Dad agreed. And I had hoped that he would grow into a wise, capable man who could support you when you took over the family business. That was my promise to his late father, to give him a life of comfort and dignity. That is why the corporate structure was drawn up this way 20 years ago. Dad turned to the equity page and pointed his finger at the breakdown. Molly Sanders, biological daughter and primary heir 70% voting shares /100%. Ultimate inheritance rights to Sanders Group HQ. William Sanders, adopted son 0% voting shares /$10 million non-equity. Executive trust fund, payable only upon non-breach of family ethics clause. William has no equity, I murmured, reading the legal clause. None, Dad confirmed. He holds 0 voting shares in the parent company. He is an executive employee receiving a salary and an annual dividend from a trust fund. He has no right to inherit the Sanders empire, nor does he have the authority to transfer any family assets. Does he know? I asked. He knows he doesn't own the main voting shares, but he believes he is the sole successor because he is the eldest male, Dad sighed heavily. He grew up surrounded by sycophants who convinced him that he was the prince of the family. And because I wanted to protect his self-esteem, I never corrected him forcefully. And Chloe? Chloe took one look at his position as general manager of the branch company and assumed he was the crown prince, Dad scoffed coldly. She didn't do her research. She saw the flash, the cars, the secondary corporate card, and took the bait. Dad looked me dead in the eye, his expression turning sharp as steel. Molly, I tried to give William a chance to see through her on his own. I let you show him the chat logs. He rejected them. He chose a dishonest, scheming woman over his own sister and father. He has proven that he lacks the wisdom to protect this family. Dad took out a golden fountain pen and signed his name at the bottom of a new legal instrument, immediate power of attorney and transfer of board chairmanship. He slid the document over to me. As of tonight, you are the official majority shareholder and chairwoman of the board of directors of the Sanders Group, Dad declared firmly. I am stepping down. At the annual gala next week, we will announce 2 things, your formal ascension to the throne of the Sanders Group and William's true legal status. I looked at the pen in my hand, feeling the immense weight of the family legacy resting on my shoulders. What about Chloe? I asked, my voice cold and firm. Dad smiled a cold, calculating smile, the same smile that had built a multi-billion-dollar empire from scratch. She wants a stage. We will give her a stage. Let her perform her little play to the very end. And when she thinks she has reached the absolute peak of her success, we cut the floor beneath her, I finished his sentence. Precisely, Dad said. Go call Brian. Tell him to get every single piece of evidence on Chloe's past activities, her financial debts, her fake credentials, her side lovers, and her illegal transactions at the branch company. I want a complete dossier by next Thursday. Over the next 6 days, the Sanders estate was transformed into a dizzying hub of activity. Chloe was in absolute paradise, believing she was merely days away from officially locking down her status as the future matriarch of the Sanders empire. Her arrogance reached unprecedented heights. She ordered custom haute couture gowns from Paris, demanded that the estate's housekeepers wait on her hand and foot, and began openly bossing the household staff around. Mrs. Wilson. Chloe screamed from the secondary living room on Tuesday afternoon. Where is my bird's nest soup? I told you I want it served at exactly 3 p.m. Mrs. Wilson, who had served our family for over 20 years, stood nervously, with her hands clasped. Miss Chloe, the kitchen was preparing the ingredients for the master's dinner. I don't care about your excuses. Chloe slapped her hand on the armrest of the couch. Do you know who I am? I am William's future wife. In a few days, I will be the mistress of this entire estate. If you can't even handle a simple task like bringing me soup on time, I'll make sure William fires you the moment our engagement is official. I was sitting at the breakfast bar in the kitchen, casually scrolling through corporate financial reports on my tablet, when I heard the commotion. I walked out into the living room, my steps silent on the thick Persian rug. Mrs. Wilson, I said gently. You may go back to preparing dinner. Leave this to me. Mrs. Wilson gave me a look of immense relief and bowed respectfully. Thank you, Miss Molly. Chloe rolled her eyes, leaning back into the cushions with an insufferable smirk. Oh, look. The little princess is playing defender of the servants again. Molly, don't you have anything better to do? Like looking for a job? Oh wait, I forgot, you don't need to work, do you? You just live off your brother's hard work. I walked over and stood right in front of her, looking down at her like she was an annoying insect. Chloe, I said softly. You seem very confident. Why shouldn't I be? She sneered, tossing her styled hair over her shoulder. William loves me. Your parents have agreed to the engagement announcement at the gala. The entire business elite of the city will be there to witness me becoming the future Mrs. Sanders. What do you have, Molly? Nothing. A useless degree from abroad and an ugly attitude. She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing with pure malice. And let me give you a little heads up, she whispered viciously. Once William and I are married, the first thing I'm going to do is convince him to cut off your monthly trust allowance. I'm going to make sure you don't get a single dime of the Sanders fortune. A married daughter is poured water, Molly. You're an outsider in this house now. I looked at her, fighting back a surge of laughter. The sheer irony of a woman who owned zero assets telling the 100% legal heir to a multi-billion-dollar enterprise that she was an outsider was almost too magnificent to bear. Is that so? I said, maintaining a completely blank expression. Well, Chloe. I hope you enjoy the gala next week. Make sure you wear your prettiest dress. It's going to be a night you will never forget. Oh, I definitely will, Chloe scoffed, picking up her nail file. And I'll make sure to order you a nice front row seat so you can watch me take everything you thought was yours. While Chloe was busy planning her grand debut, Brian and I were finalizing our preparations in private. We met at an exclusive private club in the financial district 2 nights before the gala. Brian slid a thick, dark blue folder across the table toward me, a wicked grin spread across his face. Everything you asked for, Brian said, swirling the glass of scotch in his hand. And trust me, Molly, this girl is even worse than we thought. I opened the folder and began reading. The deeper I went, the colder my expression became. She was never a legitimate graduate from State University, Brian explained, pointing to the documents. She forged her degree certificate to get the internship at your branch company. Furthermore, before she met William, she was involved with 2 other middle-aged executives from rival firms, squeezing them for luxury cars and cash under threat of exposure. What about her work at the branch company? I asked. Oh, it gets better, Brian chuckled. Over the last 3 months, since William gave her manager status in the administrative department, she's been taking kickbacks from subcontractors. She diverted over $800,000 of construction budget funds into a private shell company registered under her mother's name. She was preparing a nice little golden parachute just in case her marriage plan with William didn't pan out. I closed the folder with a sharp thud. Embezzlement, corporate fraud, document forgery, I recited quietly. That's at least 10 to 15 years in federal prison. Easily, Brian agreed. So, how do you want to handle this? Do you want me to drop this off at the police precinct right now and have her dragged out of your house in handcuffs? No, I replied, my eyes hardening into flint. If we do that now, William will think she was framed. He will spend family money trying to hire lawyers to defend her, thinking he's playing the tragic hero saving his damsel in distress. I need him to see the truth with his own eyes, in front of the entire world, so his delusion is shattered beyond repair. The gala? Brian asked, his smile widening. The gala, I confirmed. She wants to be the main star of the evening? I'll make sure she gets the biggest stage in the country. The night of the Sanders Group annual charity gala arrived. The venue was the Grand Ballroom of the Grand Hyatt Hotel, a magnificent hall, decorated with white orchids, crystal chandeliers, and giant LED display screens, set up for corporate announcements. Over 500 high society guests attended, titans of industry, board members, politicians, media moguls, and high-ranking city officials. William arrived dressed in a tailored tuxedo, looking proud and triumphant. Beside him walked Chloe, wearing an extravagant, custom-made ruby red gown, embellished with thousands of crystals. She wore a sparkling diamond tiara on her head, looking for all the world like a queen ascending her throne. She held William's arm tightly, floating through the crowds of wealthy guests, loudly introducing herself to everyone. Hello, Director Chen. Yes, William and I are announcing our formal engagement tonight, Chloe chimed, her voice deliberately elevated so everyone nearby could hear. We'll be taking over full management of the Sanders Group primary operations starting next quarter. William is so busy, you know, but I'll be supporting him as the lady of the house. The guests smiled politely, though many exchanged skeptical glances behind her back. High society elites were not blind, they could see the raw, unrefined thirst for status dripping from her every move. I stood near the entrance in an elegant, deep navy blue floor-length gown, holding a glass of champagne. Brian stood beside me, impeccably sharp in his black tuxedo. Look at her, Brian whispered, shaking his head with a laugh. She's practically strutting around like she owns the hotel. Let her strut, I said softly, glancing at my watch. It's 8:45 p.m. Dad is scheduled to deliver the keynote address at 9 p.m. At that moment, Chloe spotted me standing in the corner. She whispered something to William, whispered an arrogant little laugh, and then walked over to me, holding her glass of pink champagne high. Molly, Chloe purred, her eyes scanning my simple navy gown with obvious contempt. I see you didn't bother to dress up much tonight. Scared of being overshadowed by me? I dress for comfort, Chloe, not for validation, I replied smoothly. Humph. Keep pretending you don't care, Chloe sneered, stepping closer and lowering her tone. In 15 minutes, Uncle Sanders will stand on that main stage and officially announce William and my engagement to the world. He will also announce William as the successor of the Sanders Group. Once that happens, I am officially your superior in this family. When we get home tonight, I want your room cleared out by tomorrow afternoon. I need it remodeled into my walk-in closet. Is that so? I asked, taking a slow sip of champagne. And what if my father doesn't announce that? Don't be delusional. Chloe scoffed. William is the only son. Who else would inherit the empire? You? A daughter who spent years gallivanting around Europe? Chloe, William called out, walking over and putting a protective arm around her waist. Don't waste your breath talking to her. She's just bitter because she realizes she won't be the center of attention anymore. He looked at me with a cold, disappointed glare. Molly, tonight is the happiest night of my life. I hope you can at least have the decency not to make a scene. I looked at my brother, feeling a final pang of regret for the absolute humiliation he was about to face, but I knew it was necessary. Surgery hurts, but it is the only way to remove a cancer. I won't make a scene, William, I said calmly. I'll let the truth do the talking. At 9 p.m. sharply, the heavy velvet curtains on the main stage pulled back. The spotlight illuminated the podium as my father, dressed in a regal black tuxedo, stepped up to the microphone. The bustling ballroom instantly fell silent. Every CEO, director, and socialite in the room turned their attention to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and esteemed colleagues, Dad's powerful, authoritative voice echoed through the high-end sound system. Welcome to the Sanders Group 30th Anniversary and Annual Charity Gala. Applause erupted across the hall. Chloe clutched William's arm tightly, her face flushed with excitement. She nudged him forward, whispering, "Get ready, William. He's about to call us up." Dad raised his hand, suppressing the applause, and continued. Tonight is an important milestone for our family and our enterprise, Dad announced. For 30 years, I have led this company. But a true leader must know when to step aside and hand the reins of power to the next generation, to the true heir of the Sanders Group legacy. Chloe practically bounced on her tiptoes. Go, William. Walk up. William took a step forward toward the stage stairs, straightening his bow tie, a proud smile spreading across his face. Therefore, Dad's voice rang out, ringing with iron authority. It is my greatest honor to announce that as of today, I am officially resigning as board chairman. I hereby appoint my biological daughter, Molly Sanders, as the absolute chairwoman, chief executive officer, and majority shareholder of the Sanders Group. Boom. The words exploded like a thunderclap across the ballroom. William froze mid-step, his foot hovering over the first stair, his smile instantly petrifying. Chloe's expression shattered into complete, utter bewilderment. What did he just say? She gasped, her voice shrill and trembling. Molly? CEO? Chairwoman? No, that's a mistake. He meant William. The massive LED screen behind the podium flickered and displayed the legal corporate structure documents, stamped by the High Court and the Securities Exchange Commission. Molly Sanders, 70% voting shares / sole heir to Sanders Group HQ. The entire hall erupted into hushed, shocked whispers. Molly Sanders? She's the sole legal heir? I thought William was the successor. Didn't you know? William is adopted. He doesn't hold any voting shares. Wait, so the daughter owns the entire multi-billion enterprise? The whispers from the high society guests rolled through the room like a tidal wave. Chloe stood frozen in place, her face turning as pale as chalk. Her mind was racing wildly, struggling to process the devastating reality hitting her from all sides. Adopted. Chloe stumbled backward, her hand slipping from William's arm. Her eyes were wide with terror as she stared at William. William, what are those people saying? You're adopted? You don't own the shares? William turned his face toward her, his expression pale and filled with shame and confusion. Chloe, listen to me. I still manage the branch company. I have a trust fund. A trust fund? Chloe's voice suddenly blew up into a hysterical screech, completely abandoning her fragile, gentle act. You are adopted? You don't own the company? You're just an employee. The surrounding guests gasped, turning their eyes toward Chloe in total disgust. Her angelic facade had ripped wide open, exposing the ugly, ravenous monster beneath. On stage, Dad didn't stop. He looked down at the crowd, his eyes cold and unwavering. Furthermore, Dad continued into the microphone. To ensure the legal integrity of our corporation, we must address certain recent internal irregularities regarding our branch office administration. Dad nodded toward the AV control desk. The LED screen behind him shifted instantly. The legal documents vanished, replaced by a series of high-resolution bank statements, forged signatures, contract kickback records, and unedited video footage. On the giant 4K screen, a video played with crystal-clear audio. It showed Chloe sitting in a private room with a contractor, holding a glass of wine, laughing loudly. Don't worry about the safety inspection report. I'll sign off on it using William's digital stamp. He's an idiot who signs whatever I put in front of his face. Once I marry into the Sanders family and get my hands on the main accounts, $800,000 will be small change. Then, the screen displayed her private chat logs with her friends. William Sanders is already in my pocket. He's putty in my hands. When his sister gets home, I need to give her a good lesson to put her in her place. The ballroom went deathly quiet. Every single camera, every pair of eyes in the high society crowd, turned squarely onto Chloe. No. Turn it off. Turn it off. Chloe shrieked, covering her face with her hands, screaming at the top of her lungs like a lunatic. That's fake. It's all AI. Molly framed me. William, tell them it's fake. She grabbed William's suit lapels frantically, dragging him, her eyes bloodshot with panic. William. Save me. Tell your father to turn it off. I'm your wife. You love me. William stood there, completely paralyzed. He stared at the giant video screen, showing Chloe's mocking, treacherous smile, listening to her calling him an idiot who signs whatever she puts in front of his face. His world, his pride, his romance, his reality, collapsed into ash in a matter of seconds. He slowly looked down at the woman he had defended against his own sister, the woman he had fought his parents for, the woman he thought was an innocent angel. You used me, William choked out, his voice cracking with pure agony and humiliation. Every word you said to me was a lie. William, no. I love you. I swear I love you. Chloe cried hysterically, tears smearing her heavy makeup, making her look like a frantic clown. I was just joking with my friends. The money was for our future home. For your future home? I spoke up, stepping forward onto the center floor, my voice cold and loud enough for everyone to hear. Chloe, the $800,000 you embezzled was transferred directly into your mother's personal account, and last night, you purchased a luxury seaside villa in overseas under your own name. I signaled the back doors of the ballroom. Clack. 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 The heavy oak doors of the ballroom swung open. Four uniformed police officers from the Economic Crime Investigation Division walked in, led by 2 detectives. The guests parted instantly, clearing a path for the officers. The lead detective walked directly up to Chloe, pulling out an official arrest warrant and a set of silver handcuffs. Chloe Vance, the detective announced sternly. You are under arrest for corporate embezzlement, commercial bribery, document forgery, and grand fraud involving the Sanders Group. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Click. The cold, steel handcuffs snapped firmly around Chloe's wrists. No. Let go of me. William. Save me. Uncle. Auntie. Chloe thrashed violently, screaming at the top of her lungs, her tiara falling off her head and shattering on the hard marble floor. She turned her desperate, bloodshot eyes to my mother, crawling on her knees toward her. Auntie. I bought you scarves. I made you soup. Please tell them to stop. My mother looked at Chloe with profound sadness and disappointment, slowly stepping back behind my father. You didn't care about our family, Chloe. You only cared about what you could steal from us. Molly. You bitch. You set me up. Chloe roared, her gentle persona completely gone, replaced by pure feral rage as the officers dragged her toward the exit. You ruined my life. I hate you. I hate you all. Her hysterical screams faded down the grand carpeted hallway of the hotel, echoed by the flashing cameras of the media reporters who had captured every single second of her downfall. The gala resumed, though the atmosphere had shifted entirely. Chloe was gone, taken into custody in front of the city's entire elite class. William had quietly retreated from the hall, unable to face the blinding shame of his own stupidity, leaving the venue in silence. I stepped up onto the main stage, taking my place at the podium beside my father. The spotlight shone bright upon me. I looked out over the sea of high society guests, corporate executives, and board members who were now looking at me not as a young girl who had just returned from studying abroad, but as the supreme ruler of the Sanders Group empire. Ladies and gentlemen, I said into the microphone, my voice clear, steady, and commanding. I apologize for the minor disruption. Tonight, the Sanders Group closes an old chapter and begins a new one. Under my leadership, we will continue to expand, innovate, and maintain the highest standards of corporate integrity. Thank you for your continued trust. The entire room burst into thunderous, standing applause. Board members rushed forward to toast me, CEOs lined up to offer their congratulations, and Brian raised his glass to me from the front row, winking with a triumphant smile. Late that night, around 1 a.m., I returned to the Sanders estate. The grand house was quiet. The toxic, suffocating atmosphere that Chloe had brought with her was entirely swept away, replaced by the serene peace of the grand estate. I walked down the hallway toward the master balcony and saw William sitting alone on the outdoor steps, a bottle of whiskey in his hand, staring blankly at the dark garden. I walked over and sat down on the step beside him. For a long time, neither of us said anything. Molly. William spoke softly, his voice trembling, heavy with shame. He didn't look at me. I'm sorry. I was a complete fool. Yes, you were, I replied honestly, leaning back against the stone railing. You let a pretty face and a few fake tears blind you to reality. You insulted your family, you doubted my intentions, and you almost threw away the company's reputation for a criminal. William buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking slightly as tears leaked through his fingers. I'm so sorry, Molly, he sobbed quietly. I was jealous of you. Ever since Dad told me years ago that you would be the primary heir, I felt insecure. I felt like I had to prove that I was capable, that I was the man of the family. So when Chloe came along and told me I was her hero, that I was the rightful king of the Sanders family, I wanted so badly to believe her. I looked at my brother, broken, humbled, but finally freed from his foolish illusion. I reached out and placed my hand gently on his shoulder. William, I said softly. Dad adopted you because he loved you like his own son. I grew up with you as my big brother. You never needed to be the king of the Sanders family to have a place in this house. You just needed to be my brother. William pulled his hands away from his face, looking at me with red, tear-filled eyes. Molly. Tomorrow morning, you are taking a leave of absence from the branch company, I said, my tone shifting from sisterly warmth back to the firm, decisive. Chairwoman of the Sanders Group. You are going to take 6 months to travel. Reflect, and clear your head. When you come back, you will start from the bottom. At HQ, in the operations department. No executive shortcuts, no special treatment. If you want to earn respect in this company, you will build it with your own hands. William looked at me for a moment, then let out a deep, cleansing breath. A small, genuine smile finally touched his lips. Yes, Chairwoman Sanders, he said softly, nodding his head. I'll do whatever you order. 3 months later. The morning sun beamed warmly through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows of the 88th floor executive office at the Sanders Group headquarters. I sat behind the massive black walnut desk, wearing a sleek, tailored ivory suit, reviewing the quarterly financial expansion report. On the tablet screen beside my coffee cup, a news notification popped up. Judgment rendered, former Sanders Group intern Chloe Vance sentenced to 12 years in federal prison for corporate embezzlement and fraud. Restitution order of $800,000 enforced. I tapped the screen once, closing the news article without a single drop of emotion. Her story was finished, a minor blip in the grand history of our family. A knock sounded at the heavy oak office door. Come in, I called out. Mrs. Wilson stepped inside, holding a thermos of freshly made ginseng tea. Accompanied by Brian, who was dressed in a sharp three-piece suit. Miss Molly, Mrs. Wilson smiled warmly, setting the tea on my desk. Your mother asked me to bring this over. She said you've been working too late this week. Thank you, Mrs. Wilson, I smiled warmly, taking a sip. How is everything at home? It's wonderfully peaceful, Mrs. Wilson said, her eyes shining with genuine gratitude. Master William sent a postcard from his study program in London yesterday. He said he's doing well and can't wait to come back and work under your leadership. That's good to hear, I nodded. Mrs. Wilson bowed respectfully and left the room. Brian walked over, pulling out the guest chair and leaning back with his usual playboy swagger. So, Chairwoman Sanders, Brian chuckled, sliding a new investment proposal across my desk. Chloe is officially wearing orange jumpsuits for the next decade. William is learning humility in London, and your group's stock value has risen 35% since you took power. How does it feel to be the true mistress of the Sanders family? I signed the investment document with a swift flourish of my golden pen, closed the binder, and looked out the massive window at the breathtaking skyline of the city sprawling beneath my feet. It feels, I said calmly, looking back at Brian with an unwavering, absolute confidence, like everything is finally exactly where it belongs.